Away we go, good listener, on a brand new edition of the Tall Can Audio Podcast. Matt Robinson with you as always. This is going to be a good one. I've been looking forward to this for a couple of weeks now. Look, we're going to talk to Dan Shulman, the play-by-play voice of the Toronto Blue Jays on Sportsnet. Actually catching him at a funny time. I just said he's the play-by-play voice of your Jays, and he is. Except for right now. He's taking a week off, as he does from time to time throughout the season, right? 162 games is a lot. So this weekend against the Twins, we're getting the heir apparent, Ben Shulman, is on the TV broadcast, but just happened to be the best time to catch Dan. I typically shoot him an email midway through spring training and ask if we can get something done kind of in that last week leading up to opening day. Right around the same time we talked to Arden Zwelling, and Dan almost always quite politely says, no. How about in a week or two? How about a couple weeks into the season when things have settled in a little bit? As the voice of the Jays, Sportsnet keeps him very busy, and he's always quite polite when he says to Matt, yeah, let's just punt it a week or two. Let's punt it a couple of weeks. And so this time I didn't even bother sending the email during spring training. I waited till the season was up and going a little bit, waited till I got out on the road, and then sent Dan an email. And he goes, yeah, how about Thursday at 2 o'clock? And you're like, perfect. Thanks, Dan. So a great guy who has put up with my repeated, inconsiderately timed emails. And until I finally learned this year. Speaking of learning, I've learned what I like here. And this is the Easy Stout from Walkerville Brewery. I think I had it on the show just a couple of weeks ago, but screw it, I'm going to have it again. A 5.5% kind of sweet milk stout out of Windsor, Ontario. I have had this one, as I said, both recently and a couple times in the past. Always enjoyed it. A nice, easy one to sip on while we talk to one of the best in the business. Speaking of such high praise, we talked to one of the best covering the Ottawa Senators just on Wednesday's episode of the Tall Can Audio Podcast. If you missed it, well, that's fair. We didn't get it out in the morning. We talked a little bit later in the day to Graham Nichols, who had just returned from Brady Tkachuk's press conference to close out the official proceedings for the Ottawa Senators for the year. Talked to him about some of the things that Brady had to say. Talked to him a little about whether there are any lines to be drawn between when the Ottawa Senators finally welcomed Daniel Alfredsson back into the organization and what's apparently about to happen in Toronto, with them rumored to be bringing Matt Sundin back in a fairly prominent role. Was interested to get Nichols' take on that. Plus, lots more on the Sens, on the playoffs ongoing. So that's up right now at tallcanaudio.com. or on whatever app you're hearing me right now. You can go back and check that out if you're interested in such things. We will circle back next week. Steve Bunda is going to be in studio. Really anxious to get his take on the new rules, the new playoff format around the CFL. At first blush, I'm not loving it. Maybe he'll have a different take. Maybe he can talk me out of that. But Steve Bunda will be on next week, so stick around for all of that. I believe we keep pretty good guests coming. So well worth a follow, well worth a subscribe. Even if you're not loving me, and I get that, I'm not always loving me, there will be somebody else here to counterbalance my bullshit. So get subscribed for all of that and follow along on social media at Tall Can Audio. Okay, with all that nonsense out of the way, let's get into it here. Our guest today is the play-by-play voice of the Toronto Blue Jays on Sportsnet, Dan Shulman. Thanks for doing this, man. Welcome back. How are you?
Thanks, Matt. I'm good. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. I know you want to typically start the hitter off with get him a little off balance. Let me throw you a knuckleball here to start right away, Dan. Just as you and I are firing up here, I'm scrolling through Twitter, and I see one of your colleagues, Emily Agard, has just tweeted out she is joining the WWE play-by-play team or announce team. This is someone we've seen around the Blue Jays broadcasts before, and this is not the first time WWE has come north of the border looking for talent. Jackie Redmond has gone ahead. Rennie Paquette has gone ahead before. There's a long list. What are the odds that one day when your baseball days are done, we'll see Dan Shulman calling a WrestleMania moment?
I would say zero. And I know you can never say never, but I think sometimes you can say never. And that's not a disrespect to wrestling or anything like that, but I'm a stay in your lane guy, and that is most definitely not my lane. But congratulations to Emily. I know she's very excited about that,
For
and I think
sure.
she'll do great.
All right, let me take you back a little ways, and things are sort of steadying themselves for the Jays here. They've won 3 series in a row. We'll get to some of that in a minute, but I believe this is the first time you and I have spoken since the run of last October, and I've had enough guys like yourself in the industry who've been kind enough to take some time and talk. And the one thing that becomes almost universal is that while your fandom of the sport remains strong, fandom of a certain team becomes harder to maintain. It's your job, it's your industry, it's what you do, and you've had the opportunity to call a lot of big games over your career for American networks. Can you just kind of take me inside what that ride was like for you personally, as someone who grew up in the market? I'm sure your friends and family are living and dying on every pitch, and
Yeah.
you're trying to look at it as a job still while enjoying the ride. What was that experience like for you personally?
It was the highlight of my professional career. I guess I can start there so I don't bury the lead. And as you say, I've been very fortunate to do a lot of things on both sides of the border. I don't consider myself a fan of the team, although like 10, 12, 14-year-old Dan was.
Sure.
But it is a job, but that also doesn't mean you can't get emotionally invested in what's going on. Like, everybody who, whether it's players, coaches, staff, everybody, you know them, you become friendly with many of them. It's funny, actually, like literally yesterday, George Springer said to me, what do you enjoy more at this point, baseball or college basketball? And we were talking, and I said baseball, and he said why? And we started having much the same conversation that you and I are just going to start having now. And he said he had heard the same thing from Todd Callis, who's the play-by-play announcer for the Houston Astros. Like, you get invested in it. We're around them every single day for 6, 7, 8 months. And on top of that, and I'm glad you mentioned it, and this is this is probably more important to me, is it's not about, listen, it's much, much, much more exciting to call games for a team that's doing well than doing poorly. I think anybody can understand that.
Sure.
But above and beyond that, as you said, I grew up here, and I don't mention that in the sense, again, that like 12-year-old me was a fan, but almost every important person in my life lives here, and every single one of them is a Blue Jay fanatic. So like when everybody in your life is living and dying on every pitch, that's going to make it, feel more special to you as well. So on multiple levels, it was just an unbelievable ride. And I know they came up just short in the most painful way that, anything in sports can happen, but I choose to look at it almost exclusively as what a great ride, what a great season. They represented themselves and their city and their country so well, and they pushed an unbelievable team right to the brink. And hey, let's hope they can do it again and maybe take it one step further.
Yeah, it's interesting because it did end incredibly painfully, and Toronto sports fans have gotten somewhat familiar with that phenomenon over the last little while. But I found myself all winter long still going back and watching some of the highlights or the games in 8 minutes or whatever that Sportsnet will put up on their YouTube channel. Do you allow yourself to go back? Are you someone who maybe you get to a point in your career where you don't feel it's necessary, but to go back and relive moments or calls and go, I like that one a lot, or I wish I had said this during that moment? Do you have a favorite call from that? There was enough walk-offs and home runs and grand slams, back-to-back home runs to lead off games. There was a pile of moments that you carried beautifully. Do you allow yourself to go back and look at them?
To be honest with you, I haven't watched very much. Like not once have I gone and called up a game and just sat and watched a game, or even an inning or two of a game. Like anybody, if you're on social media at all, and I'm not on as much as most, I don't think, but stuff finds its way to you, whether you're looking for it or not. So, I'm thinking of like the Davis Schneider, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. back-to-back home runs in Game 5 of the World Series. That, and not so much since the season started. This was more in the off season probably, and at the beginning of spring training. But some stuff found its way onto my timeline, and I didn't avoid it, but I didn't seek it out either. During the course of the regular season, I will often watch a half inning or a specific call just to say, did that sound like I thought it sounded, like I wanted it to sound?
Right.
Was there too much there, not enough? Was I early? Was I late? Whatever. I'll probably do that, 2 days out of three during the baseball season. It could just be a 30-second call, or it could be a 5-minute segment or something like that. But I haven't done much of that at all last October, and I guess maybe that's me subconsciously saying I don't want to. I don't want to see it again. But is there one call that stands out? It's funny because, and I've said this publicly a couple of times, but I actually got sick during the Seattle series and was sick through the World Series. I was fine for the Yankee series and for the first part of the Seattle series, but I didn't feel I was anywhere near where I wanted to be for the World Series.
It's that time of year, Dan. Everybody's playing hurt, right?
Well, yeah, but I mean, it's just I'm just an announcer. I mean, I'm not, I'm not doing anything. Well, I guess it's a little bit tiring, but I was, I just didn't feel like myself. So some of my calls actually I don't like, which is probably why I haven't gone back and listened to them. I do think, some of the calls from the Yankee series, I think Vladdy's grand slam, and I know one that maybe sticks out, so maybe it's my favorite, and it's funny, I don't love my home run calls sometimes. I like game-winning base hits or doubles or even a strikeout to end a game. And it's Jeff Hoffman's strikeout to end Game 7 of the American League Championship Series that stands out to me. So maybe it's that, but I didn't love everything back then, but even if I had, I don't know if I would have gone back and listened to it that much. I'm pretty much a once it's over unless I'm going back to kind of air check myself and try to learn from it. So I didn't spend too much time looking back, to be honest with you.
I promise I'm not going to spend the entire time on the broadcast side of it, but listeners of this show know that I'm a nerd for that kind of stuff. So one of the other things that kind of went viral during the World Series run or the playoff run was this idea of getting shots of you and Buck in studio, in the booth, kind of as you guys are doing your thing, and you're coming on afterwards to explain, obviously we're all living and dying with the plays, and that's the purpose of the videos, but people are reacting underneath, what is that sheet for, or what is that second monitor for, little things like that, and you were coming out and taking us inside that. Do you become at all self-conscious about there being an extra camera around, or are you so focused on what's going on? What did you think of the idea of Sportsnet allowing us a view of that?
Well, they asked me if I was okay with it before they did it, and which I appreciate them doing. Self-conscious might be a little strong, and you get so wrapped up in the moment, especially in a World Series game. And maybe they started it in the American League Championship Series. I don't even remember. But in a playoff game of any level, you get so wrapped up and your adrenaline is so high and you're so in the moment. Like, to be honest with you, all the calls that you saw, that everybody saw, not for 1 second in one of those was I thinking or aware of the camera. Like I knew it was there, but I wasn't thinking about it at all in those calls. Every bit of my energy was devoted to what's going on the field and trying to do a good call. So when I watched them back the next morning, I was a little self-conscious because I was like, wow, you're kind of really moving around a lot there, Danny. Like I'm jumping around pretty good on some of them. And I didn't realize that, there's nobody there to tell me, hey, sit down, dude, or anything like that. So, but it was exciting, right? And I don't think I would do that in a June game, against some nondescript team or anything like that. But October, everything was heightened so much. And it was funny because in the aftermath, some people would come out and they would tell other people, well, he's doing this because, and most of the time they were wrong, actually. Like, people telling me why I'm doing what I'm doing instead of asking me why I'm doing what I'm doing. But, so as you said, I was happy to engage with people who would say, hey, what's that monitor for? Or what are you writing down? Or why didn't you say something for 15 seconds after the home run? That, those are good questions. So I was happy to explain to people that I call pitches off the monitor because I want to see what pitch it is and where it is and how it's moving. Then when the ball's hit, I go to the field and I'm writing what the scorebook is for. And sometimes I didn't say anything because if it was a home game, the crowd noise was so incredibly loud. Like, what could I say that would add to the moment? So laying out actually is sometimes the absolute best thing that a play-by-play person can do. I thought I think when they started it, they were just showing me and Buck. And then I think after a while, they, like the second or third game on, now it was split screen. You would see me and Buck on one side and the play on the other side. So
Right.
you could marry the two together. And that's a much better way of doing it, obviously. It gives you all the context that you need. So, yeah, it was a little bit strange. And maybe maybe it shouldn't be. I mean, I consciously I knew there were millions and millions of people listening to me. I hadn't put a lot of thought into them watching me while I'm doing what I'm doing. But Sportsnet loved it, and I guess it generated a lot of social media traffic and a lot of that sort of thing. And so all for a good cause.
Well, I think at that point, yeah, everyone was looking for every little bit of content to enjoy along the ride, right? Let's get every look at this weekend. So, that was tremendous, work by Sportsnet to start adding that, and yeah, it was great to see you engage with that because, like you said, look, it's social media. There are people who are crazy and want to explain things for themselves. But for somebody to just go, hey, there's more monitors there than I thought there would be, or why are you looking at the screen instead of at the play or whatever? Those are things most people don't understand. So
and I promise you, and they didn't do this, but the most interesting part is to be inside a television truck when stuff like that is happening.
Yeah.
So like every now and again, we have, somebody come up to the booth for whatever reason. They're usually there before the game, but occasionally maybe a salesperson brings a client through in the middle of a game or something like that for half an inning. And they always find it very interesting, or before the game, we explain to them what everything is. But the TV truck is actually way more interesting. It's just like you would imagine. We've all seen movies where they show, like live TV in a studio or a truck. And it's just like that. I mean, it's organized chaos. It's mind-boggling how many screens there are and how many people are talking and how somehow everybody hears the person they need to hear and can tune out all the other people. And it's fast, it's furious, it's fun, it's exciting. There are no do-overs. It's live TV, so it's a constant adrenaline rush. And the people who really deserve the credit are the behind-the-scenes people who are getting this thing on air and are doing the audio, doing the video, doing the replays, producer, director, like those kinds of people. They're the people who are doing the heavy lifting.
Well, as much as I'm a nerd for the whole thing, I'm an audio nerd first and foremost, and Andrew Stokely is a great follow on Twitter. The picture,
he's the best.
Some of those boards and the number of mics during a World Series he's working with, it's you can nerd out in a big way.
Yeah.
One of the big changes this year was the announcement that Buck Martinez was going to retire, and that's a loss for a lot of Blue Jays fans of a franchise icon who has pretty much done it all for the Blue Jays. I know he's going to be honored a little later this summer, but I think a lot of people were relieved, or the blow was softened by seeing Joe Siddall take that spot. I think he's sort of slowly made his way into the consciousness of Blue Jays fans. You guys had worked together before. I'm just sort of curious, what, if anything, needed to be changed in the way that you do anything, how you adjust to somebody who maybe has different strengths or different ways of going about things, just what the adjustment's been like working with Joe regularly compared to Buck.
Yeah. So first of all, on Buck, as you say, it's a huge loss, right? I mean, you can't, be as good at what you do and have meant as much as you have to that many people for that many years without everybody feeling it. I know the fans feel it. I know the franchise feels it, and obviously all of us at Sportsnet feel it as well. And I'm thrilled that he is going to be honored in August and go into the new Hall of Excellence at the ballpark, richly deserved. So, in terms of an adjustment. It's actually, I mean, I've probably done, I would say, I bet you 150 to 200 games with Joe before this year, like more than most people think.
Sure.
I know Joe did 60 or 70 last year just alone. So, and he, as you said, he's been working his way kind of into this role, right? As Buck's backup, if you will. And because Buck has had some health issues, there have been a couple of years where Joe's actually done probably more games than Buck did. Sure. I don't know the exact numbers. So it wasn't really an adjustment for me because I was so comfortable and familiar with Joe. And Joe is also an extremely easygoing, laid back, guy to work with and just a guy to be around. I'm used to this because I've been doing it so long in two sports, in two countries, on two networks. And, I've had dozens of baseball partners and dozens of basketball partners over the years. So it doesn't really shake me too much to, go from person A to person B. So the transition, for me, was kind of seamless. I know it's not necessarily that way for viewers, and I understand that. But for me, it was kind of easy. And now, Caleb Joseph is kind of in Joe Siddall's role, right?
Sure,
And I've worked with Caleb too before, not as much, maybe, I don't know, 12 games, 15 games, something like that. But he's around a lot, and he and I have become good friends, just like Joe and I have.
He
too,
also, just on TV, Caleb seems like the nicest guy in the world. Like, you would have no trouble getting along with anybody.
No, both of them are, honestly.
Okay, yeah.
I don't know how you would choose between them if you were having a nice contest. So I would definitely finish third if the three of us were the contestants. So, but they're both great. And Caleb is, he's earlier on in his career than Joe is, obviously. Sure. So Caleb is super interested in, what can I do better? Help me, should I have done that? How would we do this next time? Stuff like that. And we spent a lot of time off the air together too, whether it's on the field during batting practice, or if they're on the road with me, whichever one it is, on the bus, on the plane, in the hotel, at the ballpark, so we having dinner before, on a night off, or a beer after a game or something like that. So you get to know them very well. And sometimes the best thing you can do to facilitate chemistry on the air is to get to know each other off the air. That is the best thing you can do. Like, just go out for dinner and say, okay, let's talk broadcasting for 2 hours. What should we do? How do you feel about this? What do you want to do here? How could we have done that better? So for me, it's been, without question, if we had to lose Buck, there's no easier transition we could have done than Joe kind of sliding into Buck's role and Caleb kind of sliding into Joe's role. So I hope people are happy with it. Joe is Canadian and has been around forever, from radio to Blue Jay Central. Caleb was a Blue Jay briefly, and he's been a part of our Sportsnet family now for, 5-6 years, something like that. So, we've got the people we should have. And just like everybody else who works on our shows, they're very, very, very invested in doing the best job they can for the viewers.
It's something about catchers, eh? And I know it's kind of industry-wide, and it's the same way when you're watching hockey. It's always like backup goalies or goalies who've had a good look at this for a long time. Catchers just have a different perspective. And like I said, I know it's industry-wide, but even here over the years in Toronto, it's Darren Fletcher and Greg Zahn and now Caleb Joseph and Siddle. It's always catchers. they just have a different view of the game.
I know, and a very high percentage of managers are catchers.
It's
too.
true,
They see the game differently. So we do have Kevin Pillar, he hasn't done games, but he has done some Blue Jay Central, and he'll be a part of that throughout the season. So we get, kind of the outfielder point of view. And on radio, Ben has Chris LaRue, a pitcher, so they've got that perspective. So
Madison Shipman's coming along and doing a great job.
Yeah, up in the booth with me, it's been nothing but catchers for years and years.
I guess I should actually ask you about the baseball team here before we let you go. Look, it was a nice start against the A's, and then things kind of went sideways in a hurry, and I think it freaked a lot of people out. There's obviously injuries tied into that right through spring training, and it continued to get worse through the first couple of weeks. You are seeing things start to, or the roster start to look more and more like we thought it would. Guys are coming back. They've won 3 series in a row, headed into this Minnesota series. I'm just sort of curious, was there a point here along the way where you felt like it was getting to a point where it could slip away from them, or did you remain confident that even while this was getting a little ugly at times, they're still close enough that the season is still going to, play out the way we hoped it might, and they at least be in the mix?
Yeah, a baseball season is an eternity, right? 162 games is an eternity, and every single year, I think there are fans of many, many teams who kind of maybe overreact to the first month or something like that. So, listen, it wasn't good. The bottom was 7-13, and it wasn't good. The moment maybe I began to doubt was the day Springer was hurt. Because I guess I didn't know enough about fractured toes, but I was thinking maybe 4 to 6 weeks, and it wound up being 15 games. So, 2.5 weeks. But at some point you started wondering, how much of this can they withstand? And will they stop believing in themselves? Eventually, presumably, they will get healthier, but what kind of a hole will they have dug themselves? Right. But I always, I guess because I've been doing this as long as I have, I do always remind myself it's a long, long season and a lot can change. And hopefully now we're starting to see it turn. As you and I speak on Thursday, they've won 7 out of 10. They've got Savage back. They've got Springer back. Maybe not 7 days a week, but they've got Springer back in some capacity right now. Barrios sounds like he's maybe either one more start in the minors or maybe not. And then Barger, which to me is a big one, hopefully back in 10 days. They really need Kirk. They really need Kirk back. And this is nothing against Heineman or Valenzuela, but Kirk is one of the best catchers in baseball. And he's a very, very hard guy to replace. Maybe he's another month. The blessing for them, and I know I've said this on the air a number of times, yes, the Yankees are off to a great start, and they may have a great year. And Tampa Bay's off to a really good start. But after that, nobody is playing all that well. I think nobody's more than one game over 500 in the American League.
I think the Jays are a game and a half out of a playoff spot right
now. Which is crazy.
Yeah,
and I know some people say, playoff spot, what are you talking about? That's not the point. The point is nobody, as you well know, nobody's broken away from the pack, like really. So, maybe Houston's going to have a bad year. Maybe Detroit's not going to have a very good year. Some team, maybe Boston. Boston sure looks like they're going to have a bad year. Yeah. Maybe Baltimore's just okay. So maybe the Yankees get way out there and can't be caught. But again, there are 130 some games left, and there are a lot of good players on this team. There really, really are. I don't know if they can win a division. I don't know if they can win 94 games again. I don't know if they can go to the World Series again. But I do think there's enough talent here that if they can just be relatively healthy, average major league healthy, they should definitely, find their way into a wild card spot. And I believe, even before they got hurt, Springer didn't hit, Kirk didn't hit, Barger didn't hit. Yeah. They could be worse than 14-16. They've done okay to be 14-16 here, given all they've gone through. I would rather be 14-16 and have had all these injuries than to look out from the broadcast booth and say, this is the team. Like, it's not going to change at all. This team is going to change. Guys are coming back. They've had lineups, and you've seen them, and I've written them in my scorecard where you go, oof, this is not what we were expecting. And
I did not expect Sanchez and Lenin Sosa to be in the middle of this lineup when the season started.
Like Eloy Jimenez hitting fifth a bunch. Now he got DFA'd, and some guys hitting higher than you expect, some guys playing more than you expect, and Springer back helps some of that. Barger back helps some of that. Kirk back helps some of that. And if they can just be, reasonably healthy, they should have a good year.
I think so, right? And it was tough. Like you said, blow after blow. Every day or every series, it seemed like you were losing another guy. And as we sit here, as you mentioned on Thursday afternoon, having this conversation, I believe their record is the exact same as it was last year at this time.
I think so.
Yeah. And look, you've spent some series, right, that against bad teams that you didn't get the results you'd hope from. So not everything is equal, but you still have a whole lot of season out in front of you to get this right. I am curious just to get your take on Ernie Clement here briefly, because I think there was a lot of people who wondered, baseball season's a long time, but some guys have great years that you don't see coming, and then they never have that season again. When you were watching Ernie Clement last year kind of figure it out and become a regular and set a record for playoff hits, did you expect that to be something that he would be able to replicate, or was that, in your mind, kind of a one-off year? Because as we sit here now, he's, again, like top 10 in hits already.
Yeah.
Like, it's insane what this guy's done coming out of nowhere.
Yeah, I didn't think he would. I thought he would be able to replicate the regular season. Nobody can replicate what he did in October, right? Like 30, it's like asking Guerrero to replicate what he did in October. So, 30 hits in 18 games is 270 hits over a 162 game season. So nobody's doing that. But, I think, I don't have it in front of me, but I think Ernie hit 277 last year. I think he hit 12 homers, and I think his OPS was right around 700, which was right around league average. Mm-hmm. So often, and now he doesn't walk very much, so that hurts his OPS, but he was basically a league average offensive player, although to me it felt like more than that. He did have his droughts, like he did have his ups and downs. It wasn't all smooth sailing. But, 277 playing every day and bringing them the defense that he brought them at either second or third, or if needed at short occasionally last year. He's a plus player. He is a player who is helping your team win games. What he did in October was phenomenal. And we probably don't talk enough about all the how banged up he was last year, whether it was fouling a ball off his shin or his foot, or then he had the little fracture in the hamate bone, I think, or something at the base of it, maybe not hamate, but something at the base of his hand, and he missed a couple of days and then came right back and played through it. We joke about the hockey player guy and the kid from Rochester and all that, but that's what he is. Like, you got to drag him off the field, kicking and screaming.
Yeah.
And he is. And he's obviously a big part of everything, all the good stuff they have going on in the clubhouse as well. this year, it's just great. I think he's, probably doing a little bit better this year than he did during the regular season. I think he's hitting over 300 right now. And He's got all the doubles and the one homer, and he just seems to be very comfortable with who he is. I asked him maybe a week ago when Cleveland was in. I said, "Why are you a better hitter now than you were when you were with Cleveland?" And he said, "Cleveland tried to convince me to walk more and to try to hit for more power." And he said, "So I tried, and it didn't work for me.
It's not me.
I can't try to walk more. And if I try to hit for power, I'm going to get in bad habits." Ernie goes up there and he swings and he just tries to hit the ball hard somewhere. And he used a phrase with me. He said, "My superpower is I can hit it down the left field line." And he was joking. He can't do it all the time, but you know what I mean. You don't have to hit it 114 off the bat. If you get it over the third baseman down the left field line and it drops before the left fielder can get to it, and it's a double.
Yep.
That's really good. So I think Ernie has gotten to the point where he knows what he is. He knows what he needs to do to be the best version of himself. And he's obviously been given confidence and support from the Blue Jays organization, which has helped as well.
Last thing, I know we got to get you out of here, Dan. We just saw last night the opening of the preseason for the Toronto Tempo. I know you're a basketball guy. It took a little while for the Raptors to kind of establish themselves in the Toronto market, but they are now a pillar in that market. They have a championship to their name. You see the merchandise everywhere. Just sort of curious how quickly you believe the WNBA can be a success in Toronto.
I think it's great. It's proven itself to be immensely popular in many cities in the U.S., especially when the team is competitive. The top players are well known when they come out of college basketball now, which they probably weren't 10, 15 years ago, not nearly to the same extent, other than maybe one or two every year. I think it's going to do great. I think it's going to draw great. And
Kia Nurse coming home is fantastic.
Yeah, Kia Nurse coming home is great. And lots of Canadians coming in on visiting teams, right? We've never had more Canadians in the WNBA before. So I'm excited about it. I wish them all the best. I'm going to do my best to follow it while I'm doing baseball games 7 days a week. But I think it's going to be something that is really, really, really going to grab the attention of a lot of people. A generation or two ago, young boys could watch basketball and dream of being one of those guys when they grow up. And now young girls can watch basketball in Toronto and say, maybe I can do that when I'm older. Not that they couldn't watch it on TV before, but now they can watch it in their own backyard. And I think that's really, really special.
100%. Dan, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you making some time for us. I know you're a busy guy. Thanks so much for doing this.
You got it, Matt. Take care.
You too. All right. Thanks, Dan. That was awesome. Always enjoy talking to Dan Shulman, one of the best in the business at what he does in multiple sports. That's why it's so hard to avoid the allure of asking him about so many things when we get him in here. We got 30 minutes with the guy. How many things can I ask him about the broadcast side of it, the hometown side of it, the NBA side of it, the WNBA side of it? It's a busy man, but always makes the time for us, so we appreciate that. Thanks to Dan Shulman, the play-by-play voice of your Toronto Blue Jays on Sportsnet. That's where we'll wrap this one up. I'll be real with you. I don't know what's coming on Monday morning. Rob is away this week, and at this point, I haven't done a whole lot of work on replacing him, so we'll see what's coming. But as I did mention earlier, early next week, can you do that? As I mentioned earlier, early next week. I think you can do it. I think it's grammatically correct. It's just poor form, like so many other things on this show. Steve Punda will be here. We'll talk to him about the ongoing Stanley Cup playoffs. We'll talk to him about the CFL and some of the changes they're making. It's been a month or two since we've had Bunda in studio, so we'll look forward to that. Subscribe to the pod wherever you're hearing us right now, and give us a follow on social media at Tall Can Audio. My name is Matt Robinson. Thanks so much for checking this out and joining me today. We will catch you on the next one.